It is.
So all of this techniques and tools that you're giving us can work when the person is an outsider. When the abuser is an insider, a family member,
Yes, ma'am.
or someone who lives,
Lives with it.
what happens?
I mean, it works both ways.
Right.
It works both ways. So, for instance, this person is your dad,
Or stepfather,
or stepfather,
or uncle,
or exactly,
or aunt, or
right?
or,
And you live together in the same space. If they are children, reporting to the parents would work.
okay.
All right. If they are adults, you don't even just pack your bags and leave. Or report to somebody who there's in Nigeria there are people referred to as Olori Ebi, you know, who can call this person to order. All right. It's just sad that, especially when it has to do with parents,
Right.
when it has to do with father, stepfather, some mothers want to protect their marriage to the detriment of their children.
child, yeah.
That's very sad. I can't even wrap my head around it, right?
It does
And
happen,
so,
though.
yes, it happens. It happens. I've seen cases, right? But in that instance, it means that you have to be your own protector. Your mother isn't protecting you in that case.
Yeah.
Your father. So find a space. And that's why it's also good to have a community outside of your family. In therapy, we always want to ask for your support group, your community, people you can run to. Do you have people in church you can meet who would say, you know what, pack your bags, come into my home, you're going to be fine. And we have several NGOs, right, who have spaces, living spaces for sexual abuse victims. So just so they can be safe in their environment.
In fact, I just wanted to ask if this is part of the physical defense that you're talking about, because it's critical also for people to know they can physically defend themselves.
Yes, ma'am.
And at least get away,
Yes,
from that point, or call for an attention from those around. So, there have been, places of where I've read or suggestions made of hitting the person in the face.
Okay. Yes.
Close to the eye, so that by the time they black out,
yes,
you are gone.
Can escape.
Or hitting them in the dot area,
yes.
so that by the time they are wriggling in their pain, you are out. Is that part of what people can do?
Absolutely.
Right.
But one of the things you should look out for is, did they lock the door? Is there a space? Would it be easy for you to quickly unlock the door? Do you have a weapon around to maybe hit the door
down? Or to even keep banging the door.
Yes, until somebody comes to your rescue. Yes. The windows are also somewhere you want to look around. Is my window, can I, open the window and call out for help directly? People passing by. There are different things that can come into play when you have to physically defend yourself.
Wow. Okay, so how can children be helped? How can sexual abuse be prevented in children? How can they be helped to provide protection from sexual abuse?
I mean, it's one of the very critical things is that let children know they are safe with you. Let them know that you are their friend.
Right.
And this is not only to parents and caregivers, even to adults.
Right.
I tell every adult I meet that you are responsible for every child around you. So your neighbor's kid, who a mechanic is disturbing, you're responsible for that child. Because see, this child will grow up to become an adult one day and say that, thank God for this aunt in my neighborhood who saved me from that uncle. You would because survivors, right? They don't forget such people.
People, right?
You would always be in their story
to
say, this was my saving grace. If not that she called me, if not that she warned the guy. Because some people, some time ago, I was talking to a group of school owners about the fact that we need to teach age-appropriate sexuality education in schools. And some people were like, no, this should be a discussion for the family. And I'm like, there are some people that it's their family that is sexually abusing them.
True.
So they are not talking about it. So are you saying that
they
child...
say what goes on in this house stays in this house. And that's
So are you saying that this child should continue to face the pain because you don't want to talk about it in school?
Yep.
It's your responsibility. Anywhere we have children, talk about it in the community, in the church, in the mosque, everywhere we have children, so that if it's happening in the house, they are talking about it in the community.
Yeah, so the abuser knows
that they are exposed everywhere.
Right.
So when a child knows that they are safe there's a friendly person to talk to. That I know I can talk to this person without being judged, without being stigmatized. You're already establishing a prevention.
So basically, establishing the fact that social education is very important.
Is important, yes, ma'am.
To educate everybody socially.
Yes, ma'am.
Because again, like they say, hurting people hurt others.
Absolutely.
And what we found over the years, even in pastoral counseling and counseling professionally, is that some people who have become pedophiles were also abused as children.
Yes, ma'am.
And it keeps, how do you stop that cycle or the pattern or the perpetuation of that kind of, is there a way?
Yes, thank you for raising this, because that's the way it is. When you meet perpetrators, it's usually a trauma symptoms. Many of them have also been sexually abused. Many of them were once victims. And that is why they is a must that they get therapy. Because you see, because
there's been a transmission.
Yes.
The spirit of that lustful spirit has been transmitted
and
into
the brain has been impacted. The brain has been impacted.
And perhaps a demon just got in there.
In fact, I tell people that when you take an imaging of a child who's been through trauma and another child of the same age,
brain imaging,
brain imaging, you would see in the brain, in the image, the impact of the trauma.
Wow.
So you could differentiate
even though it's not physical.
Even though it's not physical. So they need to feel that they are safe with you. Also, educating them is extremely important. Letting them have age-appropriate education on puberty, on the different body changes, because along with this is also to prevent addiction, sexual addiction, and sexual perversion, like we see it these days. You need to let them know how their bodies will change. Let them understand that some of the things they are feeling is normal, but let them know what is abnormal. Let them know what's unnatural. Let them know what other people can do to them that is actually inappropriate. Let them know how to report, when to report, who to report to. Just make all of those things clear to them. That way you're protecting them and you're preventing sexual abuse. And also finally...
Is it okay to teach them the physical defense too? But
yes.
That depends on the age too.
It depends on the age. But at some point, Taekwondo, for instance, they have a curriculum that covers all ages from, I think, primary 2, 3, all right? So there's a way they've broken it down such that each of those children would know defense mechanisms, all right? So it's important that you're able to teach them all of these things so that when you are not there, they are protecting themselves. That way you're not afraid of sending them on holidays. You won't say, oh, they can't go and visit their aunt, they can't go and visit their grandparents. Come on, it's not that hard. Just teach them, because you won't always be there. You are not in the school bus or on the school field. You're not. So these 3 important things are what you could do to prevent sexual abuse.
That's so powerful, because I remember my granddaughter had come to spend the night at the house. And before, she would want to sleep in grandma's room. But now my baby is grown up. So when she came, I said, okay, should I tuck you in? She said, no, grandma, I'd like to stay in a room by myself. I said, wait, what?
I love it.
So I remember that she's been going through this kind of education you were talking about, sexual awareness, age appropriate, and I said, oh, all right, I got you.
Thank God for you are understanding. Some other grandparents have called your mom and say, hello, what's wrong with your child?
No, I did call my daughter to say, well, she wants to sleep in another room. I just wanted you to know, is it okay with you?
Okay.
And she said, oh, yeah, okay. So I set up another room, to put her in. So yeah. Thank you so very much. So in your own experience, how would you say you were helped in your healing process?
So it's going to be my birthday in a few days.
Oh.
And I had to, run through my journey.
Wow.
For about a month or so.
Wow.
And I started recalling things, people, situations that came together to help me heal. My life is a testimony of God's absolute mercy and grace.
Wow.
God dumped me in love. I found love everywhere.
Wow.
And I think that it's one ingredient that every sexual abuse victim needs to know that they are
surrounded
loved.
by
Yes,
love.
surrounded by love, that they are extremely loved regardless of what they've been through. That love lets you see that you are not defined by your abuse. I began to realize, yes, mom, because you feel that your entire life would speak about the fact that you've been abused, right? But I began to realize how much God loved me and how much that no matter who looks at me one kind, no matter who says something, that love is unconditional. That love is intentional. So one of the things that helped in my healing journey was the fact that I was loved by God. I was loved by family.
You understood you were loved by God.
I understood that I was
because
loved
not everybody
by God.
has come to that place of understanding.
For a long time, I didn't think that. I didn't think that God cared that much.
So it was a journey.
It was
your
a
discovery
journey.
that you were
Healing,
loved by God.
Yes, ma'am. Healing in itself is a journey.
True.
You just move from one step
Absolutely.
of healing and
Right.
recovery to another.
Right.
So understanding that I'm loved by God, by family, by friends,
Right.
and accepting the love.
Because it's one thing to be
know
loved,
you're loved and you don't accept it.
True.
And it's difficult sometimes.
Because some people push people
you push
away.
people back.
Right.
And that's why people, sexual abuse survivors struggle with,
Trust.
dating, yes, getting
Trust
into romantic
issues.
relationships because there are trust issues. They don't know what this guy is bringing. They don't know what this girl is bringing, right? So I also, I mean, it took me a while, right? Before I got married, when my husband was asking me out, I mean, it took us almost 5 years to get to the point of getting romantically involved because I wasn't just sure. Before we started dating,
Okay.
before he asked me out,
Right.
it took us years of friendship, of validating each other and knowing that, okay, this guy is for real. This guy loves me and I can trust him, right?
So I just wanted to clarify romantically involved.
Yes,
Because
so what I
some
mean
people
is
will
that-
take liberty and say, oh,
No,
so she
that's
was
what I
romantically
mean.
involved before she got
No,
married.
that's what I
Okay,
mean.
yeah. So
what I mean is before we started dating, we were friends. We were friends for a long time.
Right.
It took me a while to trust him to the point
or
where
what you meant to say before you trusted him enough.
Yes, to
relate.
date him.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. So you need to also accept that you're loved. And another thing that helped me was the opportunity to be able to share my story. It took me a while to be able to share.
Right.
And to be able to share without being afraid of being stigmatized or being judged. But by the time I got the strength to share my story, it was liberating.
Right.
Every time I shared my story, I mean, there were times that when I shared my story, I cried in public in front of a lot of people, right? But with time, I got healed. Right. Yes, I owned my story to say it's part of me. And it's still the entirety of what makes me.
You've gone past it.
Yes.
It's just part of your history.
It's just part of my history, right? So being able to share my story also helped. If you are able to summon the courage, of course, sharing your story should be with a professional first of all, someone who validates your feelings, who affirms you, before you're able to, share with people and all of that. So sharing my story helped. I had a fantastic support group at every stage in my life. I've always had a great support group, people who encouraged me. And that support group built my self-esteem, all right? It helped me see that I could do this. I mean, for a long time, I didn't think I had anything good to offer. I didn't think that I had anything
You didn't think that story was even worth listening to?
No, I mean, how would that even be worth anything you want to listen to, right? And I felt like I misjudged myself. I doubted myself because, like I said,
those are some of the effects
of abuse.
Because we're coming to that.
I always second guess myself. So some things I felt I could do, I would overthink it until I think myself out of it, so I don't get to do it. But because of my support group, they helped me to say, you can do it. I've seen you done this before. You did a fantastic job. Oh yeah, I had a lot of push. All right, so. It's not a time to isolate. Isolating would stall your healing. Being able to relate with people, being able to trust again is one of the things that would help in healing.
Thank you so much. I actually wanted you to land, and then, of course, the reason I wanted you to clarify the the romantically involved is there's a lot of mess going on around
I get it.
now, and people might think, Is it okay to be romantically involved before marriage? No,
No.
guys, that's not
That's
what she's
what I'm
saying.
saying.
What she meant to say, that she clarified earlier, was to trust him enough to date him. So basically, and they weren't romantically involved in dating, correct?
Yes, correct.
Good.
Very
I
correct.
just wanted to clear that. Okay, so how can people heal from trauma?
See, like we said in the last question, healing is a journey. Actually, healing can be lifetime, can be lifelong.
True.
Right? And I say that there is no shame in that, because all of us should become a better person. And that's what healing does to you. The more you heal, the better you become. You would love who you're becoming, right? Because you keep seeing a different version of you. I'm going to be talking about some effects of sexual abuse, so that to help us know how to heal from them, right? So some of the effects is that, I mean, there are many, depending on the kind of abuse, right? Dissociation is there, disassociation is there, and that's just to say you withdraw. You know, you withdraw from people, you withdraw from triggers, and that's why you meet adults today who can hold a conversation. They want to, you know, sweep everything under the carpet. They can't dialogue. They're aggressive, right? There's a lot of anger. You see, the people we tag as narcissists today, many of them have been through trauma. Narcissism is their way, is their coping mechanism for the psychological pain they are going through.
Wow.
Unless they show the power, they are not able to
Flex their muscle.
Yes, ma'am. So you see, being able to
you said except they flex their muscle.
That's how they are able to
validate themselves. Right.
All right. So withdrawing, disassociation, dissociation, anger issues, sexual addiction could also be a sign. That's the way it impacts all adults, right? Because when you've been through sexual abuse, there are two ways: you either hate sex or you love it too much. Too extreme.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, too
We've seen cases of the two extremes.
Yes. So all of those are. So it's not just you loving sex. It is you trying to cope. It is you trying to escape psychological pain. All right. So all of that is there. Another thing that is common is that some people, there's an unhealthy attachment. An unhealthy attachment in the sense that they can't do without people. All right. So people are important. But then when you become a leash.
So these are like symptoms of trauma.
Yes. They are like also the ways it affects you. They are the ways it plays out in your day-to-day life. All right. You see someone, you attach to them, you don't want to let them go. That's why we find stalkers.
Over possessiveness.
Yes,
possessiveness.
Yes.
Right.
That's why people stalk other people, right? You just you feel that you're going to be empty.
Want
this
them,
person goes, right? So those are ways it plays out in people's lives. Now, to now heal from some of the symptoms, you need to first come to the acceptance and acknowledgement of the fact that you've been through trauma. It's something we don't want to acknowledge. But if you've been through trauma, you've been through trauma.
Right.
And you've got to acknowledge the fact that this hurt me. This happened and it hurt me badly. There's no point trying to sugarcoat it or make me, I'm fine. You're not fine, right? So if it has happened, it has happened. I need to acknowledge it. You can't heal from a pain you have not acknowledged, right? So you need to acknowledge that you've been through trauma. You need to acknowledge that the abuse was painful, it hurt you, and acknowledging your symptoms and the way it's affecting you, the way it's impacting you. Right, acknowledging the fact that the way you're reacting to your wife
or husband
is as a result of the some of the things that happen in childhood.
Yeah, the buried traumas.
Yes, so acknowledge that. Don't, because the problem is we push the blame and say, I wouldn't have been angry if she did this or if he did this.
Blame game.
Yes, I wouldn't have gone deep into alcohol because alcohol, substance use are all
try to numb the pain.
They are all escapes. They are all ways you're trying to run away from your psychological pain, right? But when you keep putting the blame on people, it's my job, it's too stressful. Lagos is stressful. That's why I'm just using this. No, Lagos is not the issue. There are other people living in Lagos and they are not high on alcohol, right? You need to acknowledge that this is the ways it's impacting you. Now, when you have acknowledged that, the next thing is to seek help. Seek help.
Professional or pastoral
help.
Or both, actually.
Both. In fact, both.
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 Yeah, both.
Because, and usually I want to say that talking to someone,
because that brings the balance in.
That brings the balance. In fact, in trauma, we want to also know your relationship with God.
Yep.
We all need to understand that there's something or someone higher than us.
Yeah.
If
there's a
that is not
higher
the-
power that
Yes.
that can invade the crevices of that
your life.
plain life. Yeah.
So if you don't have a
Pain in the
relationship with that
life.
higher being, we also want to check it why. All right, and so we need the two forms of healing. We need
Yeah.
to seek forms of help. I beg your pardon. We need to seek professional help, and I'll say usually talk to someone who's trauma informed. Talk to a psychologist, a
True.
therapist who's trauma informed.
And a pastor who is also
Trauma
informed.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I was running some training some time ago to sensitize, pastors, men of God, women of God on how to know people who have been traumatized. When you see a marriage cracking, you are just counseling and counseling. What you need to deal with first is trauma.
Up underneath all that,
Yes,
maybe.
mom. When you deal with the trauma, you see that the marriage will begin to pick up again, right? So talk to pastors and professionals who are trauma informed, so they can give you trauma care. Because the care for trauma is not the regular care you get for all the other mental health illness, right? So get help, and when you get help, stay in help. Because psychological pain, yes, stay in help.
Yeah.
Psychological pain is so tough that sometimes you want to run away.
You have to stand in the liberty wherewith Christ has made you free and be not entangled again to the yoke of bondage.
Again, yes, mom. So and that's the way it is.
Which means one has to be aware of the fact that he that the Son has set free is free indeed.
And I want to stay in that freedom.
Stand on that word and confess it and let it become your reality. Yeah.
So stay in help. Don't run away and say, therapy is not for me. Oh, the pastor didn't counsel me well. No, you ran away.
Yeah.
You have to stay there. You have to follow it through. If they prescribe 20 sessions for you, see it through.
Yes.
If pastor says, I want to be seeing you two weeks, every 2 weeks after church on Sunday, see it through. All right? That is how you see, mom, the changes are amazing because.
And be truthful to thyself, be true. Be truthful.
You can't even get help when you're hiding.
Yeah.
When they say, what has been
I've counseled people that I could tell.
They weren't completely honest?
Yes, I could tell. And then eventually they got there. They were not, because they were scared of being judged.
Yes.
So initially, they were hideous and everything, but you could see that they were in pain. You could see that they're traumatized. You could see that there's a face behind the face, behind the veil.
Yes, ma'am.
So
stay in help, and as you stay in help, you will begin to notice your changes. Acknowledge every little change that you see.
Wow.
So if before you used to be so angry, you will break things, you will say things, but now you're angry, you are not breaking things, even though you are still saying things, but you are not breaking things. Acknowledge the fact that there's a shift.
Yeah.
Because your brain needs to know that you're not the same. You're not still the same person that entered therapy or went into counseling. Any little. So usually I ask my clients to get therapy journal. In the therapy journal, every change you see in your emotions, you write it down.
Wow.
You celebrate it. So I have a special way of celebrating my clients when they say, oh, this, I didn't see this. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. So sometimes you take yourself out to say, I'm celebrating 2 months of
milestone.
Exactly. That way you're encouraging yourself to do better, to keep working in that line.
Making that progress.
Progress.
Noting all the milestones of progress.
Because it's healing from psychological pain can take time. It can take a very long time.
Wow.
So the changes may not be so obvious. It may not be once. It may not be wow. But there will be little changes. You see, when you're going through therapy and counseling, you begin to rewire it. And with the rewiring, you'd see that you're building confidence. You used to feel so less of yourself. And I mean, I want to thank you, Mom, for all the opportunities you've given me to say that, oh, come and speak about this. Come and talk about this. Every time I'm able to do it, I'm like, oh, I'm good. I can do this.
Yeah.
I'm able to do this.
Because then you also see that you're free now.
Yes. So every opportunity you get, record it as I'm making progress. I'm changing.
Could encouraging others
with your story?
Yeah. Could it be part of?
Yes, absolutely. I was going to go there, but it's tricky because sometimes you feel you're ready and you're not. All right. So encouraging someone with your story can backfire if you are not ready. All right, because when
you get to a point of healing first,
where you think you're ready. It's not like you get to a point of complete healing because, like I said, healing takes time. But there's a point you get to that. No matter how people say, about the story they've heard you share. You're not moved about it.
All right.
You're still fine.
That's
You're
why.
still
That's
you.
when you know
You're good, all right? But be sure that you're at that stage. So some
Right.
people, they are doing very well, but they are saying, I'm not sure I'm ready to share yet. I'm not. So those ones know that, okay, I'm not there yet. So sharing your story, like I said, I've been sharing this for over 20 years. And every time I get better at it. Every time I get stronger at it, all right? So sharing, encouraging people, letting people know how far you've come goes a long way in helping you.
Let me quickly ask a question, and then we'll take the last one. So for someone who, for people who have abused others, who are the abusers, who now either have given their lives to Christ or have changed or have become better people, hear the victim of their abuse testifying or talking about it. Does that make them feel any kind of way?
Oh,
or
yes.
They also have, gone past it,
Yes.
kind of.
Yes. So here is the theme. There are consequences for actions.
Right.
That's the truth. And we can't determine when the consequences will show up. It can be 20 years, it can be 30 years. So even if you've gone past it, you're fine and everything, sometime 20 years later,
And the person is speaking about it.
Exactly.
And you happen
You
to be
see,
watching
yes.
it or be there.
Your heart will still shake a bit, but you're just going to remind yourself that I am no longer that person.
That person, yeah.
I'm
a new creature.
I'm a new creature.
I asked that question intentionally
Yes,
because
ma'am.
I know there may be people who are watching
Yes, ma'am.
or who watch this show who have been abusers before, who have perhaps been pedophiles before, or who have physically, mentally, emotionally, or
Abused
verbally
others.
abused others. Now, watching a show like this may bring guilt.
Yes.
But just to remember that I'm not that
You're
person.
no longer that person.
All things are passed
Yes,
away, and
yes.
because again, like I always say to people, you cannot outsing the grace of God.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
it's just.
And but you can't blame the person sharing.
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
their
yeah.
story.
That's their story.
That's their
That's
story.
their story.
You can't take it away from them.
Yeah.
You've got to work on yourself. You leave them with their story.
No.
All of us are on different.
The abuser's story might be private, but I mean, it's your story that once upon a time I used to be this, but now, thank God,
no longer who
I'm no
am.
longer that person. Thank God, praise God. So the last question I would like to say is a 2-in-1 question, and I would say, how does trauma affect or impact the lives of the abused person? Give us that and then your last word.
Okay. So usually trauma would affect relationships. When we're talking about psychological trauma, it actually starts, every psychological trauma most times starts from people. And so it's just normal that when you've been through some form of psychological trauma, it would affect relationships with people. So it will affect your marriage.
So it starts with people and it keeps affecting people until you're healed.
Until you're healed. Until you're healed. So you see, it could affect your relationship with your employers, your employees, in your marriage, with your children, with your grandchildren. Because, I met a 60-year-old woman who was telling me that she was sexually abused when she was 7 or 10.
And
she
she's
was 60 at that time.
Wow.
And I was the first person she was telling.
Wow.
Right. So the symptoms can follow you into your 70s, right? So it would affect relationships. That's the first thing. And that is the first thing to be conscious of. I'm saying that when you don't heal from trauma, it could follow you into your 70s.
Wow.
Right? So it can affect your relationships. And when your relationships are affected, you are isolated. And God never made any one of us to be lone rangers. We are meant to be relational beings. That's why He sent us into the world, preaching the gospel and all of that. So when your relationships are affected, you're isolated. You see, if you're not physically affected before by your trauma, when you don't heal, progressively it begins to affect you physically.
Wow.
Yes.
So basically, it can affect one's health.
Yes, it can affect your health.
Mental health.
Yes. So sometimes you're having body pains, you're having discomfort, you're having the symptoms you don't understand in your body. You go to the hospital, they run lab tests, and it comes out fine, and the doctor is saying but still you're still having those symptoms.
So is it safe to say that's the reason they say all physical ailments take their root from
the mind? Absolutely, Mom. All right. So your health can begin to deteriorate. And it's funny how that by the time you begin to dig deep and resolve your trauma, your emotional pain, you're fine in your body.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, I met people. In fact, one of my, mentors in the field told me about a couple having fertility issues. Yeah. And I mean, they did everything and it wasn't resolved until I don't know how they met with her as a psychologist, and when they began, trauma healing, she gave birth.
Wow.
Yes. So apparently one of the body organs that is affected with unresolved chronic trauma is the pelvic, is your fertility organs. Right. So it's important that you resolve trauma because it would affect you physically, it would affect your relationships, it would, I mean, you would have met people who seem really nice, they seem to be easygoing, and then suddenly you're just experiencing that, why is this person suddenly changing? Why are they this? Why are they that? It's because in between, in that journey with you, there's been a trigger. And it's like a switch.
True.
It's like a
triggers
switch.
are like switch.
They're
that
like
switch
switches,
on,
yes, Mom.
switch on something in the past.
In the past. And even the person expressing it is wondering, what's going on with me? You've been triggered by something. You've been triggered by someone. It can be as small as a smell. Someone's cologne. That used to happen to me a lot.
Right.
The last person that sexually abused me had this very strong cologne. And I've not seen him in many years. And suddenly began to, I knew where that smell was coming from. I knew that this was the cologne this guy was wearing when he touched me inappropriately. My heart started panting. We were outside in a public space.
For people who've been traumatized, just colognes, smells can bring memories, trigger memories.
Yes, patterns, fabric patterns can bring back memories. So it's not only physical space, it's not only...
Or spaces.
You enter a space, it's looking so good. It takes you back to your uncle's mansion in Ikeja. And you're wondering, why does this place look familiar? Why does this place give me this creepy feeling? It's because it's triggering.
It's triggering something in the past, a pain in the past.
And that is why you have to treat your trauma. It never goes away. It can never be.
And like you said, it would still continue to affect other relationships. Because we've seen people who were sexually abused or who have been traumatized with one situation in life or the other. When they get into marital situations, they're unable to be vulnerable or embrace
that union.
Or even love making, because every time the husband touches them in a certain way, or the wife
happened to me, Mom.
Yeah, it triggers something, and they just lock up. You just freeze.
I just freeze. And I was going to say, relax, you are frozen. I was like, no, I'm not frozen. Say, I can feel it in your skin. You are frozen. I'm not frozen. Wow. I mean, we had to talk to someone like, okay, because I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming because.
And when you do freeze, you're not even aware you're frozen.
Yes, I wasn't aware. He is the one that knew that you are frozen. Because I was looking forward to lovemaking because I had a nasty experience, right? So it wasn't
this is in marriage.
This is in marriage, right? So when we got married, I was thinking, now finally we are married, and
you thought that marriage would heal it.
That's it.
Would recess it. So that it's safe to say, like what we usually say is true then, to say that marriage does not heal
your trauma.
Absolutely. It may even bring them out.
Yes. And that's why people feel that, he was so good, she was so good, we got married and everything changed. You need to find out
why.
At what point? What triggered this change? What happened? Right?
So if the person has not spoken for years about it, now they're in a marital situation and that's triggering things. Maybe that's even what would expose
that the trauma had been there.
Yes.
In fact, Mom, the truth is some people went through certain situations that they thought wasn't a big deal until they are triggered. And when they sit with a psychologist and the psychologist is telling them, did this happen? And they say, oh, yeah, it happened. And the psychologist is trying to make the connection. They're wondering, Did it
How?
affect me? How? It's the brain. You know, because you can't touch the brain. So you can't see that when this happened, there was a shift. Right. So, I mean, it's a whole lot.
Yeah.
But when you are able to open yourself up to therapy, to healing, you would realize that with time, all of these things are changing.
And you'll be the better for it.
You will love yourself.
So what would be your closing words,
Thank you.
encouragement to people who've been abused or gone through trauma in life?
So there are three things I usually want to say. You are not defined by the abuse or the trauma you went through.
Wow.
It
praise
wasn't
God.
your fault.
Thank God.
It
Thank
wasn't
God.
your fault.
It wasn't your fault.
It wasn't your fault. I need to remind you that all of those things that happened at childhood, it wasn't your fault.
You were a victim.
You were a victim. You had no input. You didn't even know what was going on with you. Quit blaming yourself. The world can't blame you and you are blaming yourself. If the world blames you and you are not blaming yourself, you're well on your way to healing. So you are not defined by it. Your future does not have to be defined by it.
Right.
It wasn't your fault. And finally, you are loved. You are loved.
You're loved.
You are lovable.
You're loved.
You are loved and you're lovable.
Wow.
Accept the love and embrace the love.
I love that. Thank you so very much. What can I say?
Thank you,
Thank
Mom.
you so very much. I'm deeply grateful that you came on the show to share all of this. And I know that a lot of our viewers have been wondering, okay, hold on a second. She keeps saying, Mom, is she your daughter? My daughter in the gospel. So that's why she says that. And I'm so grateful to God. Super grateful for this amazing woman that God has given me the opportunity to be her mother in the gospel. Thank you so much. And we hope that this has been a blessing to you. Like, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful, blessed, and productive rest of the day.